I don't recall. I would imagine I'd seen it on the booking.
How long had Mr. Gordon been in the jail cell? Let me ask the question this way. Are those jail uniforms in the same configuration, and do they look like a flight jumpsuit?
Similar.
Pair of coveralls?
Similar.
Heavy nylon construction?
Yes.
Was the fabric torn?
I don't believe so.
Did it appear to be disassembled at the seams?
You're speaking of the suit that was torn up.
That's the 11 pieces of material. Were any of them torn?
Don't believe so.
They were just taken apart at the seams, is that correct?
Yes.
The thread was just missing from them.
I don't know that the thread was missing, but it was de-seamed at that point.
Was the thread in the holes of the seams, or was
I believe there was some thread left in the seams, fragments.
How many pieces were there? How many rags?
I believe the evidence is 11.
How many pieces comprise a complete jail suit?
I have no knowledge of that.
Do the guards come in and out of the jail cells during the night?
Generally, no, they don't.
So is it your testimony that the guards do not come in and make bed checks periodically during the night?
The bed checks are generally conducted through the doors, looking through the windows and the doors.
How much are those jail coveralls worth in dollars?
I don't have any knowledge of that.
Are they worth $150?
I don't have any knowledge at all.
Could you buy a pair of coveralls for something less than $150?
Don't know. I've never tried.
Do you believe that those jail clothes are worth $150?
I don't know.
Would you pay $150 for a pair of those?
No, I would not.
I'm going to bring your attention back to approximately March 26th. Do you recall that event, March 26, 1982?
What of that event do you speak of?
Do you remember George Gordon being brought into the Ada County Jail on March 26th?
I remember him being brought in somewhere back in that period of time, yes.
About 2 weeks prior to this event of the jail suit on April the 9th?
Something close to that.
Did Mr. Gordon refuse to wear his jail suit at that time?
Yes, he did.
Had he claimed his constitutional rights at that time?
Something like that.
And he demanded all of his rights and refused to wear the jail clothes, is that correct?
I don't recall. He may have.
Did you attempt to book Mr. Gordon on March 26, 1982?
Yes, I did.
And what was the response and the reaction of Mr. Gordon at that time?
He refused to be booked.
Did he refuse to wear the jail clothes?
Yes, he did.
Did he assert his constitutional rights as the reason why he would not be booked and would not wear the jail clothes?
As I said, he may have. I don't recall exactly what. He was spewing some things, but...
Did you strip Mr. Gordon's clothes off of him and dress him in that jail suit?
Did I?
Yes.
I may have.
Did you do it with Mr. Gordon's permission or against his will and over his objection?
I believe it was against his will.
Why did you do that?
Because it's policy that all people incarcerated in the county jail will wear the jail uniform.
Is that the jail policy?
Yes, it is.
Does that jail policy supersede Mr. Gordon's rights?
That I have no knowledge of.
Are you instructed at all about citizens' rights?
No, we have a card there in the jail that designates what rights prisoners have.
Did you inform Mr. Gordon of his rights?
I believe we tried to have you sign a card that, as I say, designated the rights that you had.
Did Mr. Gordon make any demands specifically?
Such as?
A lawyer?
I believe maybe he had.
Did you get a lawyer for Mr. Gordon?
No.
Did anyone else?
No. Not that I'm aware of.
Did you make any attempt to secure counsel for Mr. Gordon?
I did not personally, no.
Did Mr. Gordon make demand or request that you give him a pen and paper to write a writ of habeas corpus?
Which time are we speaking of now? Are we still...
Either time.
No, I did not.
Did you secure a pen and paper at either of those events, the 26th or the 9th of April, for Mr. Gordon?
No, I did not.
Did you tell anyone else to get him a pen and paper?
I may have.
You may have, but you don't remember?
I don't remember. Mr. Gordon was making so many demands and that I don't recall.
Did you enter into a conspiracy with anyone else to frame Mr. Gordon?
Conspiracy?
Yes.
No.
Did you bring in a pile of rags and substitute it for the jail suit under Mr. Gordon's bunk?
No.
Do you know if anyone else in the jail did that?
I don't believe it'd be highly unlikely.
Could anyone else have done that while the other prisoners were asleep during the night?
It'd be highly unlikely that anybody would.
Have you ever heard the word constitutionalist before, Mr. Honey?
I've probably heard the word before, yes.
Has the word constitutionalist been used in the jail to describe Mr. Gordon?
Possibly.
Have you ever heard the word constitutionalist used in the Ada County Jail describing Mr. Gordon?
Possibly, yes.
Has it been used in a derogatory sense?
I don't think necessarily derogatorily, no.
You've had experience with Mr. Gordon before?
Before which?
April 9th?
In March, yes.
And Mr. Gordon demanded all of his constitutional rights at all times, is that correct?
You may have. As I said before, I don't necessarily remember everything you said, no.
Does Gordon strike you as being an obnoxious person?
No.
Uncooperative?
No, maybe he's just standing up for his rights. I don't know.
Demanding?
Yes.
Did he demand his rights on the 2 occasions that you had contact with him?
I know he was demanding something, yes.
Did you fulfill his demands?
No.
Did you do anything at all that Mr. Gordon demanded?
No.
Did anyone else present do anything that Mr. Gordon demanded?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Did you attempt to book Mr. Gordon either on March 26th or on April the 9th?
On March 26th I did, yes, if that's the proper date.
And did Mr. Gordon cooperate and give you his fingerprints and go through the booking process?
No, he did not.
Did he object?
Well, he was saying something, but I don't know whether you'd put it in the form of an objection.
Did he refuse to be booked?
Yes.
Did this make you angry?
Oh, not really angry, no.
Did it make any of the other jailers angry?
I don't know. I don't know what their feelings were.
Did you hear any of them swearing at Mr. Gordon on March the 26th because he wouldn't be booked?
No.
Objection, Your Honor. Those are leading questions.
He can answer those questions yes or no, Your Honor. He either knows or he doesn't.
Yes. Objection overruled.
Did you observe Mr. Gordon being choked unconscious on March the 26th?
No.
Did you see Mr. Gordon forcibly booked on March 26th?
Somebody might have held his hand, I don't know.
Did
try to obtain fingerprints.
How many people held his hand on that afternoon, Mr. Honey?
I don't recall.
Were you present at 12:30 in the Ada County Jail on March 26, 1982?
Yes, I was.
And you observed the booking process of Mr. Gordon on March 26th? And did you observe someone hold his hand? Was that to steady it a little bit so that there wouldn't be any smudges on the fingerprint card?
That's possible.
Is that the way it happened, or isn't it? Remember, you're under oath, Mr. Honey, and there's 5 other witnesses.
I don't really recall.
You can't remember?
No.
Okay. Let's come back to about April the 8th. It was around noon, and Mr. Gordon was brought in. Were you present at noon on April the 8th, 1982?
Yes, that would have been during my shift.
And on that date, did you assist Officer DeLeonard in booking the prisoner, Mr. Gordon, in?
Yes, I did.
Did you participate in the booking process that day?
Yes, I did.
Did you choke George Gordon unconscious on April the 8th, 1982?
No.
Did you participate in that act?
I don't recall anybody becoming unconscious, no.
Did you observe Mr. Gordon being booked on that day?
Yes.
How many officers were involved in that booking?
I don't know exactly how many.
Was Officer Scarborough there?
He may have been.
Was Sheriff Palmer there?
He's not in there very often. I really don't know.
Was he in there on that day?
I couldn't really say.
Was Larry Richards in there that day?
I can't recall, no. I don't know.
Did you hear the words booking from Sheriff Palmer?
No.
Did you hear the words?
Not that I recall.
Did you hear the words, "Don't make any marks on him," from Larry Richards?
Not that I recall.
Did you hear the words, "Don't make any marks on him," from anyone?
There was a lot of talking going on, but I don't know what was all being said.
Were you the person who held Mr. Gordon's hand steady to make sure there'd be no smudges on the fingerprint card on April the 8th?
I might have.
And did Larry Richards hold the defendant?
I don't recall. Like I say, there were other people involved besides myself, and I don't recall who was doing what.
Did Mr. Gordon resist?
Yes.
Would you describe, for the record, please, how Mr. Gordon resisted?
Physically.
To the point of being choked unconscious?
I don't recall that, no.
How many times did you observe Mr. Gordon fall to the floor?
In the scuffling, maybe he slipped one time, I don't know.
There was a scuffle?
Yes.
Was there an Officer Moran there helping take the prints?
He could have been.
Officer White, was he there to help take the prints?
Any one of the other jailers could have been there. I don't recall.
You don't recall? Were there just you and DeLeonard taking the prints?
Possibly. Maybe another officer. I don't know.
There could have been 2 or 3. Could there have been 6?
That would have been unlikely.
I see. Did the defendant walk over to the fingerprinting area of his own free will and volition?
No.
Did you carry him over?
Personally, no.
Did you observe anyone else carry him over?
Could have been, yes.
It could have been, but you don't remember. Is that correct?
Could have been, but I don't recall who they were or how many.
Do you always have this much problem with your memory, Mr. Honey?
I don't see that there would be any problem with any memory. It was just a matter of not knowing exactly what everybody was doing at one specific point.
Why don't you describe for us in your own words what happened that day?
All I recall is that the defendant refused to be booked and refused to wear the jail clothes.
And so when he refused, you just said, "Well, thank you, Mr. Gordon, you're in cell J." Is that correct?
No.
Well, what did you do
Well,
to secure the
we
fingerprints?
forcibly took the fingerprints and dressed Mr. Gordon in his jail suit.
Okay. And how many people did it take to pour Mr. Gordon into his jail suit?
To pour?
Well, did Mr. Gordon put his jail suit on voluntarily?
No, I don't know how many. As I say, I don't remember how many people
Well, did Mr.
were
Gordon
involved.
put his
There might
jail
have been
suit
2,
on?
there might have been 3, there might have even been 5. I don't know.
Oh. Well, were you there at that time, or were you off in the land of Oz?
No,
Where were you physically when this
I was
going on?
helping to book you in and get you in your jail suit.
Were you in the same room with Mr. Gordon?
Yes.
Okay. You seem to have a problem with your memory, and I'm trying to help you here. Did Mr. Gordon put his jail suit on by himself, or did someone assist him?
No, he was being assisted.
Did you assist him in putting the jail suit on?
I probably helped, yes.
Did you do it by yourself?
No.
Did Gordon assist you in getting into the jail?
No.
Did he resist?
Yes.
He absolutely refused to put him on, is that correct?
Of his own volition, yes.
And so I guess the question is, how many of you did it take to put him in it?
As I said, I don't recall. It could have been 2, could have been 3, could have been 5. I don't know.
But you didn't do it by yourself,
No.
Is that correct?
No.
So it took you and at least one other, is that correct?
At least one other, yes.
Your Honor, let's take a 15-minute break if we might. We've been at this for quite some time. Would that be in order at this time, Your Honor?
Yes, I think so. We'll take a 15-minute recess.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let's take a little break here while we're at recess and kind of analyze now what it is that we're doing. From my position and my vantage point, I want to impeach Officer Honey's testimony. I want to show that Officer Honey can't remember, that he's evasive, and he's doing a super job of that. He won't give me a direct answer. You know, by now the jury should, and you out there on the other side of that TV screen should be sitting there saying, why, was he even in the same jail? Was he in the same state with Gordon? Because he's evasive, he won't answer the questions. He knows he's on the hot seat. But if you'll notice, as we keep asking the questions over and over and over, we rephrase the question, we bring him forward and we bring him backward from the 26th to the 8th. And as the story begins to unfold, yeah, he was there. Yeah, he participated in the booking. Yeah, Gordon was demanding his rights, all right. And we're trying to show the jury, in this particular type of a case, that the jail was really upset with Gordon. They'd had run-ins with him before, and that they really took that jail suit in there, the rags in and the jail suit out for the purpose of framing him. My objective is to create reasonable doubt, because remember, reasonable doubt is what I'm after. And whether the jury finds me guilty or not guilty is not relevant to me at this point. I want to create that doubt so that in the appeals court, that record will show the appeals court that there was no evidence that I tore that jail suit up, that there was good reason and good evidence that probably the jailers did it. So that's what we're after, and that's what we're trying to do. Now, this transcript is long. Do you know how long this case could go on? It could go on for 2 or 3 days. Officer Honey alone could take 1 entire day, possibly 2, just going over the questions that came up at the preliminary hearing, trying to impeach him. And at every time that he answers the question incorrectly, well, a little later on we'll come back, Officer Honey, at the preliminary hearing you said thus and such, and in your testimony here today you said so and so. Are you changing your testimony here today? This is what we want to go over and over. But we also are doing another thing. Remember, when we get out to lesson 27, we're going to talk about the Title 42 suits. While I'm in this trial today, I'm not only not too concerned about whether the jury's going to find me guilty or not, I'm more concerned about setting this record so that when I sue Officer Honey with everyone else, I'm trying to get admissions and confessions today so that I can take those into the district court and sue him under Title 42 for $1 million. And if I can get some admissions like, they never gave me counsel. Well, did you ever help me get counsel, Mr. Honey? Well, no, I didn't. Well, did you get me a pen and paper for my writ of habeas corpus? Well, no, I didn't. Well, did you beat me unconscious? How many times did I fall on the floor? And remember that there's all these other policemen, and we always leave them out in the hall, don't we? See, only Honey is in here right now. All of the other witnesses are out in the hall. And while I'm going over these questions with Honey, we're going to send Honey out and we're going to bring DeLeonard in, aren't we? When DeLeonard comes in, we're going to ask him the question, how many times did Gordon fall to the floor, 2 or 3? When DeLeonard says just once, remember it was Honey that was saying, well, gee, I can't remember. I don't know. I can't remember. I wasn't in the room. Yes, I was in the room, but no. How many people did it take to put him in the jail suit? Well, 1, maybe 2, maybe 3. I'm not really sure.
What are we going to find out from DeLeonard? Was it 2 times, or 2 people, 3 people, or 4? I happen to know I was there. It just took 2. 2 big guys can do it. But it took 6 of them to get the prints. And Honey was in on that. And we happen to know that one guy had me around the throat, and that it was the sheriff himself who said, book him, and Larry Richards who said, don't make any marks. Now, I know that because I was there. All I need to do is to help get these admissions and confessions on the record for the Title 42 suit. Always be looking ahead. How much damage can we cause later? What kind of evidence can we get later? Because this same man, Officer Honey, is going to be on the witness stand when we're talking about this in the Title 42 suit. All right, now let's pick this up again and let's continue on, and we'll go at a little faster rate, and then we'll bring Officer DeLeonard in, and then it'll be about time for us to rest our case and put this in the hands of the jury. But in the meantime, let's see how much evidence that we can get, and then let's see what kind of a performance our prosecutor over here can do or perform or to put in here to help salvage this testimony from Officer Honey. So let's pick it up again from Officer Honey.
Okay.
Well, then you do admit that you took part in the fingerprinting. Is that correct, Mr. Honey?
Yes, I did.
And you admit that you did take part in the dressing of the defendant. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And you took part in this against the defendant's will and over his objection. Is that correct?
Yes.
And he had demanded certain constitutional rights. Is that correct?
He may have.
I believe your testimony was that he did, that he'd made numerous constitutional demands.
Now that he was making numerous demands, whether they were constitutional or not,
And you admit
I believe he probably said at one point or another that, they did have to do with the Constitution or something. I wouldn't.
And you do admit that Mr. Gordon has a reputation of being a constitutionalist. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that he is called a constitutionalist in the jail. Is that correct?
I believe I've heard that word.
Okay. And I believe that you did admit that Mr. Gordon is not liked in that jail. Is that correct?
No, I didn't admit that. I don't have any knowledge of that.
You didn't say that? What do the other jailers say about Mr. Gordon?
I don't believe I've ever heard him say anything.
In this attempt to fingerprint Mr. Gordon, did you succeed in that attempt? Or did you fail in getting Mr. Gordon's fingerprints on April the 8th?
We did not get the fingerprints, no.
And on April the 9th, did you succeed in getting Mr. Gordon's prints again, or did you fail?
I don't believe we got them then either.
Would you describe Mr. Gordon as being a belligerent claimant in person who refused to be booked?
He refused to be booked, yes.
Was he belligerent about it?
Yes.
I believe you stated that you didn't see Mr. Gordon tear up his jail clothes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you know of anyone else who did see Mr. Gordon tear up the jail suit?
I don't know of anybody, no.
Did you question all of the other 7 people that were in that cell? Did you ask them, did you see Gordon tear up the jail suit?
No.
Why didn't you question those people, Mr. Honey?
I questioned 2 of them.
And what did they say?
One of them didn't want to be involved, and the other one did say that you did tear it up.
Yeah. What did he say?
Objection! If you want to ask the man that question, bring him in. I object, Your Honor.
Objection sustained. Rephrase your question.
Let me rephrase it. Did he give you a written statement?
Yes, he did.
And in that written statement, did he say did you read on that written statement where he said, I saw George Gordon tear that up?
Yes. Something to that effect, yes.
Did he describe to you how this was accomplished?
No.
Did he say, or did you ask the question, or was it written down on your report as to what tools or instruments it took to remove the thread?
No.
Is the thread, or does the thread in those suits unravel?
What do you mean unravel?
Well, you know, when you go to open a sack of grain, there's a way that you open the thread and it just unravels and you pull it and it comes apart. Mm-hmm. Are those jail suits constructed that way, or are they constructed in such a way that every stitch has to be cut or removed?
I think it would be highly unlikely to have that zipper stitch in a jail suit.
Well, if it had the zipper stitch in it, that would explain how easily the suit could be ripped apart or just disassembled. But if it didn't have the zipper stitch in it, do you believe for a moment that a prisoner in only a few hours' time could take every stitch out of one of those jail suits?
I don't know. I've never tried it, so I wouldn't have any idea.
Let me bring your attention back to the morning of April the 9th. You came into the jail cell at approximately 8:15 with a roll call of prisoners to take to traffic court. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when you walked in, where was Mr. Gordon standing?
He was standing in the cell facing his bunk.
And was he talking to another man?
Yes, he was.
And was that other man Mr. Johnson?
Could have been.
And when you talked to Mr. Gordon and used the words, Gordon, put on your clothes, were you facing Mr. Gordon?
Yes, I was.
Was your back to the bunk, Mr. Gordon's bunk?
Yes.
When was the first time that the knowledge came into your mind that a jail suit had been torn up into a powder rack?
Well, when I glanced around the room to see where Mr. Gordon's suit was.
When did this occur? After you told him, Gordon, put on your jail suit, or before?
After.
Are you saying then that with your back to the bunk, you told Gordon, put your jail clothes on? Is that correct?
Yes.
And
I object, Your Honor. We've gone over this before, and it's all been established, and he's just rehashing the same questions all the time.
Your objection sustained. Please, these questions have been asked and answered, Mr. Gordon. Move on to new material.
Your Honor, I don't believe I've covered this ground with this particular witness. And in addition to that, this is a hostile witness, and I'd like to invoke the hostile witness rule at this point, Your Honor. This witness is obviously hedging and dodging and refusing to answer questions. And based upon Mr. Johnson's testimony, it's at this point in time, Your Honor, that it's necessary and imperative that I continue under the hostile witness rule to determine whether or not Mr. Honey is lying.
Well, I think it is apparent that Mr. Honey is not on your side, so we'll allow you to lead the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Mr. Honey, let's go back to this question again.
But we'd like to have you avoid asking the same question twice, Mr. Gordon. This material has been gone over quite thoroughly. And
if Mr. Honey would give me a direct answer, Your Honor, we would only need to cover it one time.
We'll give you a few more minutes.
Now, Mr. Honey, isn't it a fact that your back was to the bunk?
Yes.
And you said to Mr. Gordon, Gordon, have you torn up your jail clothes? Are those your words?
I probably said that, yes.
How did you know those jail clothes were torn up unless somebody had told you earlier that the rags were planted under Gordon's bunk?
Oh, I saw them under the bunk there.
How did you know they were torn up?
Well, I could see seams under there.
So you knew then that they were torn up before you talked to Gordon about getting dressed. Isn't that correct?
No.
Well, then how did you know that they were torn up?
When I told Mr. Gordon to get dressed, I didn't know it at that time. It wasn't until after I said that I glanced around the cell to see where his suit was so that I could hand it to him.
But you asked the question, Gordon, have you torn up your jail suit before you glanced around? Isn't that a fact, Mr. Honey?
I don't believe so, no.
In other words, you looked around and you saw that they were torn up, and then you said to Mr. Gordon, Gordon, have you torn up your jail suit?
After I saw them, yes.
So, how far were you from the jail suit when you were talking to Gordon and glanced around?
Maybe 10 feet.
So you looked over.
Or less.
Let me see if I can describe this. You looked over 10 feet and saw that there was a pile of rags torn up. And then with your back to those rags, you looked at Gordon and Johnson and said, Gordon, have you torn up your jail suit? Is that a fact?
Yes.
Is that the way that...
I would say that's probably about right.
Why didn't you ask the question, have you torn up your jail suit? How did you know it was torn up until you went over and looked at it?
Well, I looked at it from where I was standing, and I could see seams there.
You could tell that it had been disassembled or ripped up. Is that correct?
I could see that there was something torn there, yes.
What led
or
you to
disassembled or whatever.
What led you to believe that?
From what I could see.
So you deny that you knew anything about those being disassembled prior to going into the cell, is that correct?
Oh, yes, definitely.
And prior to talking to Gordon and Johnson, is that correct?
Definitely.
Okay. I don't believe I have any more questions of this witness at this time, Your Honor, but I would like to reserve the right to recall him as a rebuttal witness at some future time based upon the testimony that I'm going to put in myself.
Very well. Cross-examination.
Yeah.
Mr. Carnahan.
Mr. Hunt, is it common knowledge that Mr. Gordon has turned down counsel in the past, appointed lawyers?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor. There's no foundation laid for this. Absolutely none.
Objection sustained.
The question was asked you, Mr. Honey, about the booking procedure, and that the prosecutor, or that the client was, the charged person was asked that he wanted counsel of his choice. Right? Has that been discussed here? It has been.
I believe so.
Okay. If the counsel wanted counsel of his choice and had been known in the past to refuse counsel, was this your reason for not giving him counsel?
He has refused the court-appointed counsel, yes.
I have no further questions.
Redirect.
Well, now that we've brought up the subject of counsel, Mr. Honey, would you please tell us the definition of counsel?
Licensed attorney.
In your mind, then, a licensed attorney is a counselor. Is that correct?
So far as this is concerned, yes.
Let me ask you a question. Did you at any time call a lawyer for Mr. Gordon?
No.
So Mr. Gordon, then, was denied a lawyer or counsel because you didn't call him. Isn't that true, Mr. Honey?
Yes.
That's all, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mood indigo.
Mr. Gordon, will you call your next witness?
Thank you, Your Honor. I think I'll call Mr. DeLeonard back.
Mr. DeLeonard?
Yes, Your Honor.
You're still under oath.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. DeLeonard, I just have a few questions that I'd like to ask you pursuant to April the 8th. Now, would you please relate to us, what was the first time you saw Defendant Gordon come into the jail on April 8th? Could you tell us what time?
I believe it was around 12 o'clock.
And was Officer Honey on duty at that time?
Yes, he was going off duty shortly.
Okay, does he go off duty at the same time you do at 2 o'clock?
That's correct.
And did you have occasion to attempt to book Mr. Gordon in on that day?
Yes, we did.
And did Mr. Gordon make any constitutional objections to the booking process?
He mumbled something about Fourth and Fifth Amendments and things like that. I didn't really understand.
You didn't understand his constitutional demands, but they were made, were they not?
Well, if you're calling them constitutional demands, he was talking about his Fourth and Fifth Amendment, but I was under orders to book you.
And did you book me on that day?
Yes, we did.
And
As best we could.
as best you could?
Yes.
Would you describe the scenario for us?
Well, you were resisting, and we had to, just sort of pick you up and carry you over there and get the prints as best we could. We didn't get very good prints.
Did
In fact, we gave up.
you gave up?
Yeah.
How many men were involved in this attempt?
Well, I think everybody that was on shift that day was involved. There were 6 or 7 of us involved.
And was Mr. Honey one of the 6 or 7?
Oh, certainly, yeah.
And was it Mr. Honey that said, don't make any marks?
Objection. This, Your Honor, these have been asked and answered and asked and answered. I'm tired of this.
Let me rephrase the question. Did you hear words to the effect, don't make any marks?
No.
Was any physical force used on Defendant Gordon?
Yeah.
How much physical force?
Enough to get him over there and enough to constrain him until we could attempt to get some prints.
And did Mr. Honey take part in this?
Yes.
Your Honor, these questions have been asked and answered and asked and answered. Do we have to go through this whole scenario again?
Your Honor, this is a hostile witness, and I'd like to cross-examine him under the hostile witness rule. And this line of questioning goes to show the motivation behind the officers who were there and present and who used excessive force and it took my prints and went through that booking process and violated my rights.
You may lead the witness, Mr. Gordon, but please ask your questions only once here. This question, which was objected to, has been asked and answered, and so I'll sustain the objection to that extent.
Do you remember Defendant Gordon using the words, I demand all of my rights at all times and I waive none of my rights at any time?
I don't remember those exact words.
At the preliminary hearing, Mr. DeLeonard, you said, I do recall you saying something like that, sir. Are you changing your testimony today? Or
No, I don't remember those exact words. You did say something about demanding your rights, and I told you that I would indicate and testify that you said something to that effect, but I don't recall the exact word that you used.
Well then, did I tell you that voluntary submission is tantamount to failure to object?
I don't remember those exact words.